My name is Marcia Robinson, and we are recording an oral history with Cathy Bishop Clark as part of the Sweet MUMories Oral History Project to mark the 50th anniversary of the Miami University Middletown, Ohio campus. This interview is taking place on August 5th, 2016 in Johnston Hall. Dean Clark, Bishop Clark, do I have your permission and consent to proceed with the interview?
Yes.
Thank you. So I understand that you've been with us for about 27 years.
I have.
Can you tell us about the time and when you first started and what brought you here?
Sure. So I started at Miami University 27 years ago. It's 1989. I just finished my master's degree in computer science and quantitative analysis. And I was a female in computer science, so lots of people wanted to hire me. And I was offered a job at Oxford, and I was offered a job at the regionals. And at that time, I only had a master's degree, so I didn't even have a doctorate yet. And I was also 25, so I was closer to the age of the students than I really was to faculty. And so the regionals felt right to me. The kinds of students that come to the regional campus, I was more comfortable. I wanted to have more of an impact on that kind of student, a different kind of student than the student that maybe has a little bit more money and a little more talented. So I chose, at that time, Middletown, and I thought I'd be here for 2 or 3 years because I thought at that point I would go back to school, I'd get my doctorate, and then I'd probably go somewhere else. But I ended up enjoying this place so much that my 2 to 3 years turned into my 28th year.
Wow. What is it about the students that you find so magnetic?
The students are, they're very authentic. Here's an example. I taught a class, I've taught many classes at Oxford, but when I taught the class at Oxford, it was often a debate about a grade. And here at Middletown, I would teach the same class, and a student would get an F because he didn't turn an assignment in on time, but he turned it in, but it was still an F, and he'd say, okay, it's an F. You know, it was so authentic. It's like the students cared so much about the learning and not enough about the grade. Not all students, but the students were real. They struggled with real life problems. They often are not flush with money. And they have a personality that I think authentic is the best way to describe it. And I like that authenticity. And I just like working with the kinds of students that we work at the regionals. I mean, it's not often that you can have a 60-year-old and an 18-year-old, or any more, a 14-year-old in the same classroom.
So what kind of skills does it take to handle that age range in a class, especially in the technology field?
Yeah, that's really interesting. Well, you realize I've been out of teaching technology for about 10 years, so haven't taught in a while for any amount of consistent amount of time. But I think I'm not sure the age range is what makes it so difficult. It's the different learning styles and the different kinds of ways that students learn. You know, some of them learn by doing, some of them learn by taking something and taking it away and studying. Some of them learn instantly, some of them have to absorb. Some like to participate, some like to pull back. So I think it's about creating an environment where each person in the classroom can learn. And that's not so much about age difference as just different learning styles.
Are there programs in place to help faculty develop these skills?
Many, many, many programs. We have, I feel like if you wanted to, you could go to classes and learning opportunities and workshops to develop your skills every single day of the week. Between Hamilton and Middletown and Oxford, we have a wealth of opportunity to develop skills, teaching and learning skills, helping students learn.
How else do our faculty at the regionals maintain their scholarship?
Well, it's tough to maintain your scholarship at the regionals because we have a very high teaching load. But if you look at our faculty have excellent scholarship, and it ranges from art productions to some world-class textbooks to state-of-the-art science research. I think everybody does it in a little different way. Some of our faculty include students in their research, undergraduate students. I mean, imagine that. You've got an 18-year-old, brand new, who can be involved in some state-of-the-art research in the sciences. So that's an impressive thing. Other faculty, I think, are very careful with their summers. They make sure they spend summers researching, and then faculty are just so passionate about it. They fill in the crevices, right, with research. We have a high teaching load, but we also have extraordinary scholars.
In an earlier interview with some of the first students to attend this school, they talked about the facilities that we had. One computer with punch cards, or a professor who approached class and brought his slide rule to class. Have you seen changes in our technology?
Oh, sure.
Would you talk to those?
I am a professor in computer and information technology. So the very first class I taught, it was actually on this floor of Johnston Hall. It was down the hall to the right, and it was in a regular classroom. So I taught a computing classroom on word processors, not Excel. Way back then it was Lotus 1-2-3. Word processors, Lotus 1-2-3, and a database management package, which I don't even remember. And I taught that without computers. We actually were in a room with the overhead projector, and I'd have slides showing them what would be on a computer. That changed pretty quickly. So that was 27 years ago. I think that was changed in the first 2 years I was in a classroom. But sure, way back then I taught in a classroom without a computer lab, and when I needed to use a computer lab, I had to reserve it. We were all tied to a mainframe computer. I'm trying to remember the name of it, but I can't remember. And of course now everybody's got a computer on their phone. So the technology has changed tremendously in 27 years.
Have our course offerings and majors also evolved?
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the things that, our majors are, so I was thinking, we're celebrating our 50th year, and I'm starting my 28th. So in some ways I've grown up here. I started when I was 25. I was the student's age, and I'm 52 now. It's a lot different being 25 than it is being 52. So I've kind of grown up with all of this. But in all those years, really the first 20, things haven't changed as quickly as they have in the last several years. Like for all those years, we were never allowed to offer new bachelor's degrees. For almost as long as I've been here, we've had a bachelor's degree in nursing and a bachelor's degree in engineering technology. That's 2. We've had 2 for a really, really long time. About 7 or 8 years ago, we added integrative studies. In this fall, we're starting with 15 bachelor's degrees. So in a period of 3 years, we went from about 4 or 5 bachelor's degrees to 15, and our first master's degree. So have the degrees changed? Absolutely. The kinds of degrees we've offered, and the level that we've been able to offer. But that's all been pretty recent. That change has been pretty recent.
When the school was still an idea, back in 1964, the community of Middletown wanted a place for their children to have access to higher education. Are we still in line with that original goal?
Absolutely. This is a place where anybody who has a high school education or the equivalent of a high school education can come and have a chance. And that is one of the reasons why I'm here. That's because anybody, And financial need, we can usually figure something out with financial need. So it gives the opportunity to anybody who wants to give it a try. And that's always been the kind of institution where I wanted to spend my career.
Without naming names, do any students stand out in your mind as examples of people who have taken advantage of the opportunities? And can you give us a brief description of the examples without naming names?
Without naming names, yes, I can. The story, though, it ends kind of sad, but then it gets happy. One of my favorite all-time students, he was in one of my classrooms, and he sat in the very back row the first time I had him, and had a ball hat and didn't look up ever, never turned anything in, and he flunked. He wasn't even close to passing. He flunked, and he came back a couple years later, and he was in the front row, and he came back extremely interested and motivated. Don't know what happened to those 2 years, but in between those two, he had figured out he wanted to get a degree in computing. And he had an interesting background. Both of his parents were deaf. He did not come from, he would be a first-generation college student. And there was also a lot of drugs in his family. So he was kind of stepping outside what he was surrounded by. And he was here for, on and off for 10 years. He wasn't your solid student that was here every single semester till he got that degree. But he was here, and he eventually earned an associate's degree, and in that time he tutored other students, and he was my assistant. He helped me with some grading at some point. Took all the hard classes, calculus, discrete math, really, really tough classes. And maybe about 3 years ago, I hadn't seen him in a couple years, but I'd check in on him every once in a while. Hey, how you doing? What's going on now? And he checked back in. I said, you got to come back now and get a bachelor's degree. You're done with your associate's, you got to come back. So he came back, but there was something a little different this time. And in that process with the heroin epidemic, he had gotten involved in that. And it ended up that he did lose his life to heroin, which was terribly sad because this was one student that he just kind of represented for me why I was doing all this. Because for a decade, he was associated with this place, and he contributed to it, and he created wonderful things. And, he passed away, and I went to his funeral and said some things, and in the end I thought, what the heck? 10 years, spent 10 years with this guy, and it still didn't end the way you want it to end or the way it should have ended. But then at graduation, not this past graduation, but the graduation before that, I was lucky enough to shake everybody's hand as they go up and get their diplomas. And one of his friends who had come to see me after he passed away, she had said to me, the only reason I'm here is because of this student. He convinced me to come to school. And so when she came up to get the diploma, she shook my hand and she said, this is for. So it's such a cool story because I said his name. Oops. The student, because the student didn't end up getting the degree, but his friend got a degree, and his friend wouldn't have got the degree without him.
I think we're okay on the name because that would have been in the newspapers. Might it have been?
Yeah.
Okay, if that's in public record, it might be okay.
Okay. I said
but
oops.
We might need to delete the name. We can do it down to the minute. We'll check.
Okay.
Okay. I remember that fall that you came back determined to make some changes and to reach out and to do some more work and to engage more faculty with you. Can you describe ways in which our faculty engage with the community, period?
I can describe ways that the faculty can do get involved with our community. We have faculty that some science faculty members. Can I mention names here?
Employees, yes.
Employees, yes. Okay, so Carolyn Kiefer is one of our botanists, and Carolyn Kiefer, I think, has pretty much planted every tree in the city of Middletown. I'm exaggerating, but she has planted an enormous amount of trees and flowers, and it goes outside just the campus. She's very, very involved in the community. I know lots of our faculty who are involved in the school system. I know some faculty who served on board members. I know one of our faculty members currently, Leland Spencer. He's in charge of the debate team at, I believe, it's either the Middletown or Hamilton campus, and he takes that debate team all over the country, so the high school debate team. We've got a lot of connections. You know, recently with this new dean's job, I'm out in the community quite a bit more, and I'm learning how many faculty we have in our community who are advocates of our campuses. People in the community know our campuses in many cases through our faculty and staff. It's our faculty and staff that's built the connection, and those connections are incredibly important. It serves us both well.
Some people have talked about the staff as a family, and that family extending into the community. Mm-hmm. Can you speak to that?
Well, we're small. We're a small group of faculty and staff, and I think that makes us unique. When we walk down the hallways, we see everybody, right? We see administrative assistants, we see records and registration people, we see faculty, we see staff, we see students, and just the proximity, you know, that we're all so close makes it, I think, a tighter community. I was here when we did a reduction of force, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 or 7 years ago. And we actually had people that came and said, I'll reduce my salary if we can keep everybody. I mean, so that's how much this community of faculty and staff care about one another. Because that's a pretty big sacrifice. I was touched by that. And it wasn't just 1 or 2 people. You know, there were a fair number of people.
As we talk about the community and the campus, we've also increased our footprint in the Middletown area. We've added a campus, the Green Tree campus. Mm-hmm. Can you talk to that, please?
Oh yeah, I can talk about Green Tree a whole lot. I was intimately involved in Green Tree. So Green Tree is a very interesting facility. It's a facility that houses a high school, and also we have part of Green Tree. So it's one building, and it's a beautiful building. It's state of the art. It's crazy clean. It's got images of medical things everywhere, and half of the building is high school and half of the building is the university. For a while we had Cincinnati State in there as well. But the hope is that students who are at Warren County Career Center, they go to Warren County Career Center, they'd take some high school classes, but they would become so interested that they would, and meet us, since we're there sharing the building with them, that they actually stay and continue on with some medical programs at Miami Middletown. It's a facility that required involvement from the city. The city contributed, Atrium Medical Center contributed, Warren County Career Center contributed, and Miami University. So if you think about those 4 different systems and 4 different ways of doing things, the fact that we were able to pull that off is nothing short of a miracle. But it's a facility that I think we still can grow in that facility, but the opportunity is there. You know, we've got the structure, we've got the people. I think there's lots of opportunity for that facility to grow.
Speaking of growth, the university is changing. It does have the new degrees.
Mm-hmm.
We've been talking about the past very often, but could you please see for us the way forward into the future?
I can definitely see toward the future. I told a group this past week in a session that I was in, is I am waking up now at 3 in the morning, you know, consistently, which is not a good thing. You don't want to wake up at 3 in the morning consistently. But I'm waking up at 3 in the morning wishing it were 6 so I could get started. There is so much that's right for the regionals right now. It's been a chaotic time the last 3, 4, 5 years. A very chaotic time. Chaotic not just in terms of who we are within Miami, but it's been chaotic emotionally. I'm going to steal language from other people. This is not my language, but in some ways we have landed, I feel like. So we've had all this chaos in the change. We've landed, and we're ready to build a new Miami Regionals. Not without losing the past, but incorporating all the positive things that are happening right now. What are the positive things? Well, we have a new president, right? That new president has been out here 1, 2, 3, I think 6 times in the last 2 months. Okay, he's very interested in the regional campuses, and he sees a lot of opportunity with Miami Regionals. We have landed. In other words, I'm hoping all that chaos can kind of settle for a while. Okay, we are launching our first ever master's degree. We are launching 6 new bachelor's degrees, 5 new bachelor's degrees. That's a big deal. You know, institutions, even big institutions, don't launch 5 new degrees at one time. Half of our departmental administration is new. Okay, 6 new department chairs. That could be an incredible. You could view that as, oh my God, you know, everything's so brand new, or you can view that as that's an incredible opportunity, and that's what I think it is. I think we are really poised to do some wonderful things, and we have the faculty and staff to do it. We're sitting on a huge talent pool, and we have people with the talent and I think the energy and the motivation. And I'm hoping that past chaos will settle a little bit. We've landed. Let's build together something that's even better.
I've observed through the last few years, despite the uncertainties, a consistent passion.
Mm-hmm.
How would you define that passion, if you've seen it?
Absolutely, I've seen it. So no matter what happens, you know, no matter what happens, it's almost like when you go into that classroom, it's your sanctuary. At least that's how it always was for me. There can be total chaos in the world, but as soon as you walk into that classroom, it becomes your world, and it's a world that's just you and your students and growing and learning. And for a while, you get a break from all the other things that are going on. And when you're in that classroom, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about all the chaos and I don't want to just say chaos, you know, all the change. But the one thing that's remained the same is it's still students and it's still teachers, and we still have a valuable connection, and and that will never change. You know, when I think back of the 27 years, and I think, wow, everything's changed. You know, so much is different about the campuses, about the technology. But then I think it hasn't changed at all. It's still about the student and the faculty member and that relationship and that education. So I think no matter what's happening, we have that to ground us. And that's always grounded me. It's made me remember, it's helped me remember that what we're doing here, we are doing the right thing. We're educating students who might not have an opportunity to be educated. We're doing it in a high quality way. And so when the world is collapsing around me, I just back way up and think about, what, we're still educating students, and we're still educating students who, in a quality way, that might not have a chance to get this kind of education.
I'd like to continue with the opportunity idea and talk about the quality of student life. How do we deliver that college experience without dormitories?
Well, that's a good question, but that also assumes that the college experience includes dormitories. Okay? If you define the college experience as one in which you have to live away from home and in a dormitory to fully embrace the college experience, then we can't do that as well. But if you define the college experience differently, right, it's an opportunity to grow and to develop different ways of thinking and different ways of communicating and understanding different cultures and belief systems, then it becomes different. So you sleep at home, but you still can go to school here, get a job here, participate in activities here. But if you can't, and if you have to work those other, 35, 40 hours and go to school, it's still a college experience. It's not the same college experience as the person who's living in the dormitory, but it's a college experience, and it's a good one, and maybe even a better one.
What about the virtual experience and our e-learning system?
Yeah, so e-learning is an area that we're growing in, and it too, if you think about what we're about opportunity and access and high quality. And some people have a difficult time physically getting to campus. They need the flexible structure that e-learning allows. And we're able to do that, but still maintain Miami quality. And I keep saying that because that's really important, still maintain Miami quality. I mean, we are still Miami University, and I deeply believe we are one of the best undergraduate institutions in this nation. So that quality always has to be there. But it's just another way, right? You can get that high quality through living in a dorm in Oxford, through commuting to one of the regionals, through sitting at home and taking e-learning courses. Okay, all three ways are going to get you a high quality education.
Sometimes our faculty model the life of a good citizen, and I understand that for you that includes trips to Haiti.
Yeah, yeah.
Would you let us know about your involvement in a global community in that manner?
Yeah. So I guess about 2 years ago, I went to Haiti with my teenage daughter, and I think I was having a midlife crisis, basically. I felt like, okay, I'm educating people, but for whatever reason at that period of time, it wasn't enough. I needed to do something more dramatic. And we give our resources, as a family, we give our resources to those in need, but I don't give my time as often as I would like. And at the same time, I had a teenage daughter who I wanted to hang out with more, and I wanted her to have an experience where she could see a world that's very, very different than ours. So the two of us went on a medical mission trip to Haiti. Neither one of us know anything about medicine, but nonetheless, I was a pharmacist for the week. I was able to pick that up. And my daughter, I think, gave everybody vitamins. But we spent a week, and my daughter actually went back a second time. And we just met that whole group. We still help every year with their preparation to Haiti, pill packing, and buying medical bags to send there. But we treated about 100 to 200 people a day in clinics, and we would go to different places in Haiti to provide those health clinics. And that was that was my first experience in a third world country. So that was, that had a strong impact on the way I view the world.
Yeah. Are there any particular colleagues that you would like to remember who helped to shape you into the person that you've become?
Oh gosh, absolutely. Colleagues, you know, Diane Delisio. Diane Delisio is a faculty member who's still here, but she's an associate dean in Oxford. And we worked together for, well, my entire career, except now she's in Oxford. And we have a funny relationship because we don't talk to each other, we just yell at each other. But Diane's always been one of my advocates, even though she would never admit it. She's a person who I trust. We're polar opposite in the way we do things, in the way we perceive the world, but I think we also have each other's back. And she's always been a person that's been there for me. I've had a couple mentors in Oxford that are no longer with the university, but still contribute to my growth. Lee Sanders, she was somebody I consider a pretty important mentor. She was an associate dean at Miami Hamilton, and she helped me learn much about administration. She's somebody I hold in very high regard. And then I just learned from everybody I communicate with. You know, I take for granted that the people I'm surrounded with are really intelligent, really interesting, and I find down-to-earth people. And those are exactly the kind of people I want to be around. And so, you know, my day-to-day interactions can be quite interesting just because of the interesting people. And I learn and grow from other people's perspectives and the way they view the world and the way they grow. My most interesting memory of Finkelman Auditorium was very early when I started. And Mr. Brady, the man who took the shot for President Reagan, his wife was speaking at Finkelman Auditorium. And the NRA came out in force. And with all the NRA there, we also had security, both inside and outside of Finkelman. So there were security guards just surrounding that whole auditorium. And the NRA took the first I don't know whether it was 10 rows anymore at this time or 20 or 3. It seemed like a lot. And when she started speaking, they all stood up and they turned their back to her. And she proceeded to give her speech. And it was through taunting and boos. But she also had a crowd there that was also very interested in hearing what she had to say. And so that whole evening, I mean, I remember that well even now. The whole evening was, at the same time, disappointing, chaotic, exciting, and incredibly interesting to see all these different reactions to Mrs. Brady. And I've kind of followed her since because of that one incident. But that's the one that I remember the most at Finkelman.
Okay. I'd like to know what characteristics of the average MUM faculty stand out the most to you?
Characteristics of the average Middletown faculty member that stand out is their passion. Most of us can make a whole lot more money if we weren't in higher education. And most of us can easily be hired by an institution that has lots of graduate students and have a lower teaching load and have more resources. But the people that are here, for the large part, are people who are passionate about serving at an open admission institution. So probably the main one is passionate. Another one is I find them all intelligent. I think they're all smarter than I am. Every time I talk to people, I'm thinking, wow, they're a bunch of we have a bunch of really, really smart faculty members.
Okay. Is there anything else that you would like to leave for future viewers of this interview?
For future viewers, so let's see, it's 2016 right now. I've been here since 1989, which is more than half of the life of Miami Middletown. And again, while so much has changed, so much has stayed the same. We're still about students. You know, you certainly never, I didn't see any cell phones when I started here, right? We didn't have them. And now everybody's got cell phones. We teach in different ways. You know, we've learned a lot more about teaching. So I'm not teaching computer science in a classroom without computers anymore. But so much is the same. And I think we need to continue to adapt to the changing reality. And that reality within higher education has changed more recently, more change in the last 5 years than the last 20, from my perspective. You know, the change has started to be very, very rapid. And I think we are poised to do very well with that, with the new kind of education that we need to deliver and that we need to be.
You inspired one more thought about changes in the last few years, and that's globalization.
Mm-hmm.
We have more international students.
We do, yes. So for Miami Middletown, about 5 years ago, started having a pretty big Chinese cohort, and I think that's a way to internationalize our campus. It's with some of the resources that our students have, it's difficult for them, many of them, to get out of the country. And another way of internationalizing your experience is to bring students in. And I hope in the future, you know, we're largely a Chinese cohort, but we hope that we'll make that even more global. You know, we are a global economy. The lines aren't as clear anymore. And I think the Chinese groups have been fantastic, and I've enjoyed meeting the students and working with them.